Alright, welcome back. Episode 65. God damn, I've done a lot of these so far. And still, we are hanging out in the New World with the giant anteater, scientifically known as Myrmecophagia tridactyla. Easy for bio majors, easier in English. Three-fingered anteater. Giant is also a very fitting name, seeing how the other living anteater, the tamandua, weighs roughly 10 pounds, and our current case study floats at about 73 to 110 pounds. Being a native to South America does unfortunately mean we don't have a lot of biomes that we can incorporate into our exhibit, but luckily they do have a very interesting lifestyle. That being that they will stick to grasslands so that they can hunt, but they will find deeper, denser forests to sleep in. Giant anteater is more nomadic than the game suggests, but only by slightly. The territorial range is roughly 1 square mile to about 12.5 square miles, depending on where they live. Now, of course, females are going to tolerate territorial overlap a little bit better than males. Those can end up actually leading into fights, and while you may think that an insectivore like the anteater may be a pushover, you would be very, very wrong. Anteaters actually have very poor eyesight, meaning that predators are very capable of sneaking up on them. And with that unfortunate set of circumstances, that means they don't have time to run away. And those 4-inch hook claws can really fuck your day all the way up. These Freddy fingers are meant to dig through very hard termite mounds and would have no problem making new holes in any animal willing to find out. As a matter of fact, it is known that they will swing on jaguars and have killed them, and there are even 2 bodies attributed to these animals, both being hunters that got a little bit too close because they thought they could just stab it to death because it was slow and not running away. Well, next thing you know, one of them catches a bear hug, and by bear I mean jamming one claw into his clavicle and the other into his thigh, rupturing the femoral artery, and the other one catching a slash right to the pelvic bowl, again severing the femoral artery, which led to a very quick bleed out. While on the topic of anatomy, let's quickly discuss the other main characteristics of the animal. The large puffy tail is actually used most often while it is sleeping, both for hiding its silhouette to look more like a dirt mound, similar to how the emus rested, and also being used as a blanket to keep them warm in the cold jungle nights. And, of course, finally, what that tongue do? Reaching 2 feet long, this sticky wet muscle can flick in and out of its mouth and into any long crevice 150 times per minute. Okay, now that I got the sexual innuendos out of the way, let's just jump into the fact that this tongue, of course, evolved to help the anteater eat all 35,000 ants, termites, and other insects a day. Which, pretty much, and with that fact, I was very curious to see, what do they feed them in captivity? Do they just have a giant ant farm? And it turns out, no. In captivity, they're usually fed a mixture of milk, eggs, mealworms, and ground beef. You know what? I guess it works. Now, moving on from the now, let's focus on the past. Anteaters can be traced back to the end of the dinosaurs 65 million years ago, where they split from the order Cingulata, which led to what we now know as armadillos. And then they split off from their closest living relatives, the sloth, roughly 58 million years ago. Now, to our knowledge, the lineage of all extant anteaters first came about 40 million years ago, and the giant anteater itself had split from the tamandua 13. Now, due to South America being an island up until 3 million years ago. I know I'm throwing out a lot of numbers, but you're smart boys and girls and I believe in you. Anyway, due to it being an island up until the creation of the Isthmus of Panama, this meant that you can only find anteater fossils in South America. And in addition, unfortunately, it's hard to know many details about their evolution due to the rarity of their fossils. For instance, one of the extinct species, known as the Protomandua, only is known by a single tooth. So, kind of struggling knowing details. But, of course, the local peoples have plenty more to say about our long-faced friend. Interestingly, like the last episode, the Amazonian tribes believe the anteater to be a trickster. But, unlike the coyote, it was less of a malicious trickster like Loki, and more of a comical trickster, like the Joker. Not the Joker, a Joker. Very, very different. Some cultures had also revered the animal in other ways. For instance, the Yorubora people have a story of how an ogre was actually turned into an anteater because it decided to start running its mouth to the sun god. Apparently not being very entertained with the ogre, the sun god turned him into the aforementioned anteater so that his long, narrow face was not capable of yapping all day long in a very uncool way. I mean, I wish the sun would do that to some people in this world right now. And, of course, one of the many masks of the Kayapo people, which were usually used in naming events, kind of like a second birthday, and coming-of-age traditions, had a mask resembling the anteater. Now, interestingly enough, I had found a new monster, and quite simply, I am a massive mythology and cryptozoology nerd, so I'm surprised I haven't found this before, and this is the anteater equivalent to a werewolf. The Capelobo, or lame wolf, which, I mean, I guess that's one way to put it. Essentially, being kind of what you would expect from an anteater version of a werewolf, bipedal, humanoid. One interesting fact about it, though, is apparently it only feasts on brains and blood. And it's very durable, and its only known weak spot is the navel, for some reason. I mean, I know when I was a kid, that always made me uncomfortable, thinking that if you just poked it, all your innards would fall out, so maybe that's how it works for this creature. Oh, it's also very famous for screaming. A lot. Which, if I looked like that, yeah, I'd probably scream a lot too. And to wrap up our little bit of culture, let's get into pop culture. So, it obviously has influence with the Pokemon Heatmore. However, I mean, yeah, I guess that's an anteater. Has big claws and a goofy face. Okay. And apparently, it was also a partial inspiration for the Muppet Mr. Snuffleupagus. Mr. Snuffleupagus. Which, looking back as an adult, is fucking terrifying. Jim Henson, what in the fuck were you on when you made this abominable creature? Well, anyway. With all that said and done, this is our lovely exhibit for the anteater. And if you liked it, you know the drill. Like, share, and subscribe. Still trying to figure out this YouTube thing, so if you got any suggestions on what I can do better, please let me know. And until next time, go outside, hug your loved ones, drink water, touch grass, and bye-bye.